Welcome to Circle of Hearts Radio. Journey with Grandmother Allayah as she enters her magical world of relics, sacred sites, and ancient crystal skulls. Meet with exciting trailblazer authors and individuals shifting the consciousness of humanity. Send her your questions to be answered on air on her monthly segment, Ask the Oracle. And now your host, Grandmother Allayah, in the sanctuary on the airwaves on OMTimes Radio.
I'm Allayah, and today I have a very special show for you. And we're going to bring up a subject of senseless violence. Now, this is a subject I think most of us rather not even think about, but my guest today is going to share a very personal journey of his in regards to an act of violence that totally affected his life. Azim Khamisa is a father who lost a child to an act of violence, and his journey, even I think his first book, the title, Azim's Bardo, From Murder to Forgiveness, A Father's Journey, it really explains it all. It's very, where we're going to go with this. But before I bring on Azim, I'd like the listeners to take a moment and think about violence. It's something we don't want to think about this world. We're faced with it daily. I think that we've become so desensitized that we don't see it as a problem. But what bothers me is a lot of our young people are perpetrators of violence. And that's really scary because our children are our future, and we really need to address this issue and not to become so callous to it that we figure it's somebody else's problem. Let's take it one step further. What if it was your child or a family member that you lost in a violent act? How would you react? I've thought about it, and I think after my initial grief, I think I would be so upset I'd like to do harm to somebody, but violence is not the answer. And so that's why Azim's message and the work that he's doing and his son's foundation is providing answers. So let me not waste any of your time and bring on Azim Khamisa. I thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me on your show.
Prior to 1995, your life was very different. In January of 1995, what changed? What changed your direction?
Well, as you mentioned in your preamble, that my son, who was a student at San Diego State University and worked as a pizza delivery man on Fridays and Saturdays, was lured to a bogus address in San Diego, where I live and where he went to school, to a apartment building in a middle class area in San Diego. And they gave the right address of the apartment building with the wrong apartment number. And it was my son's turn. So it was a very random act of violence. It was his turn to go deliver the pizza. So he jumped in his car and went to the apartment building and knocked on many doors. Found out that nobody ordered the pizza, so he came back to his car, put the pizzas in the trunk of his car, climbed into the driver's side seat, and as he was about to leave the scene of the crime, he was accosted by 4 youth gang members. 3 of them were 14-year-old, and the leader of the gang was an 18-year-old who handed a 9mm handgun to a 14-year-old. And as my son is trying to back his car from the driveway of the apartment building, the gang leader gave the order, "Bust him bones," and he fired 1 round, which came through the driver's side window and entered my son's body under the left shoulder blade and traveled across the upper part of his chest and exited from his right armpit but it destroyed all the vital organs. And Tariq died in a gang ritual called Jacking the Pizza Man. 2 minutes later, drowning in his own blood over a lousy pizza at the age of 20.
I think that's a parent's worst fear, something happening to their child. I don't know how you manage to stay sane.
Yes, needless to say, it brought my life to a crashing halt. I worked as an international investment banker when my son was alive, and then it literally took every ounce of my willpower just to climb out of bed. And I routinely flew the world. I don't know what's more complicated for a parent than to lose a child. And I went through all the emotions that you would imagine a parent to go through, despair, overwhelming grief, hopelessness. I remember that I was even suicidal at one point because I really did not know how to live without my son. But I survived the tragedy, as you know.
Well,
And
I was going to say on your book, I was interested to see the word bardo. Now, for those that don't understand or are familiar with the word, it's a state of the soul between its death and rebirth. It's sort of, you died your old pattern, your old life, and you were born with renewed purpose. It seems to me, so it's very profound.
Yeah, the bardo concept actually comes out of the Tibetan Buddhist culture. It's an amazing concept. Bar means, it's a transitionary state where the word bar means to be something that is a transition, and do means when you are upside down. So there are many bardos in life. Birth is one, graduating from school, getting married, maybe going through a divorce, your first job, maybe getting fired. These are all bardo states when you feel that you are in this transitionary stage and you feel upside down. But death is the biggest bardo of all. And the Buddhist tradition, they prepare their entire life because they believe that when you are in a bardo, your spirit is vibrating at a very, very high frequency. And if you prepare for it throughout your lifetime, that when you do die and you are in this supremest of all bardos, and because your spirit is vibrating at such a high frequency, it is possible to step out of samsara and enter nirvana. Samsara is, as you pointed out, life, death, life, death, life, death. Nirvana, of course, is an enlightened state. So it's a very interesting concept, yeah.
And it's very apropos. I think in going through all the stages of grief that you were, the transitioning of yourself, of coming to a sense of peace, and to seeing a bigger picture here.
Yes. And that I think is very well said, Allayah, because in what I learned in this process that during times of intense tragedy, during times of intense trauma, during times of an intense bardo, there is sometimes a spark of clarity. And what happened to me is when I did finally find out from homicide that Tariq had been killed, I was in my kitchen, I lost strength in both of my legs, fell to the floor, hit my head against the refrigerator, and curled up into a ball on the floor. And I remember that the pain was so intense that I actually had my first out-of-body experience. I left my body because I couldn't be in my body. And you hear this about when people go through extensive trauma. For instance, rape. I've read that the victims then leave their body, and I did, and I believe in God. I practice as a Sufi Muslim, and I believe I went into the loving embrace of God. And he held me there for a very long time. And when the explosion subsided, he sent me back into my body with that spark of clarity that there were victims at both ends of the gun. So even in that moment, very early, I was able to see that the clarity didn't come from my intellectual mind. It didn't come from my loving heart. It came from a higher power. And I think that the spark of clarity when I came back to my body was that there were victims at both ends of the gun. And that kind of started my journey, because when you look at this tragedy, who is the enemy here? Is it the 14-year-old gang member that killed my son? Or is it the societal peer pressure that force many young men to fall through the crack or get radicalized, and we lose them to lives of violence and gangs and drugs and alcohol? So I was able to see that, that my son was a victim of the shooter, but the shooter was a victim of society, of American society, and I am an American. So I felt that as an American, I must take my share of the responsibility for the bullet that took my son's life, because it was fired by an American child. So I had this very high level of empathy for the victimization of young people that either, fall through the crack or get radicalized. And 9 months after he died, I started the Tariq Khamisa Foundation. And the mission there is to stop kids from killing kids. And we have three mandates. First and foremost is to save lives of kids, because we lose so many on a daily basis, as you pointed out. Yeah, our second mandate is
I was going to say, I think we're going into the commercial break, but I definitely want you to discuss the foundation, the work that you're doing, as soon as we come back, okay?
That's fine.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
No, the name is Joe. The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go. Yeah!
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
We're back with Azim Khamisa, and I wanted to, before you go into the work of the foundation, when I was reading about it, a song popped in my head, and it seems kind of apropos. These are brief lyrics from Whitney Houston's song, The Greatest Love of All. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride, and to make it easier, let the children's laughter remind us of how we used to be. And I think that's a very important in the society, and
Yes.
I think we neglect it. You know, we bypass it. Oh, this isn't our problem unless it becomes personal. And then when it becomes personal, some people don't even know what to do. So please tell us about the foundation that you
Yes.
created for your son.
So as I was saying earlier, that you could take the position, you kill my one and only son, he should be hung from the highest pole. How would that improve society? That the enemy here was not the 14-year-old, but all the pressures that fall, that, come onto these young people, as Whitney Houston's song describes, is that they become and they fall to the cracks. So I decided that I would like to make sure that other kids don't end up dead like my son, or end up in a gang like the kid who killed my son in my community. So 9 months after he died, the Tariq Khamisa Foundation, I founded it with a mission of stopping kids from killing kids by breaking the cycle of youth violence. We essentially have three mandates. Our first is to save lives of kids. Our second is to empower them with the right choices so they don't end up in lives of violence and gangs and guns and alcohol and drugs. And our third mandate is to teach the principles of nonviolence, of empathy, of compassion, of forgiveness, and most importantly, of peacemaking. Because violence is a learned behavior. No child was born violent. And if you accept that as a truism, nonviolence can also be a learned behavior. But you have to teach it, because kids are not going to learn the concepts and the principles of nonviolence through osmosis. So soon after I started the foundation, I reached out to the grandfather and guardian of my son's killer with the attitude that I'm not here screaming retribution and revenge. Rather, what I see is that we both lost a son. I'm here in the spirit of compassion and forgiveness. I can't bring my son back from the dead, and there's nothing you can do to get your grandson out of the adult prison system. And I started this foundation with a very lofty mission of stopping kids from killing kids. And the real reason I'm here is to ask for your help, because this is a big job and I can't do this by myself. So while I can't bring Tariq back from the dead and you can't get Tony out of prison, the one thing you and I can do is to make sure that we don't have any more Tariqs and Tonys in our community. Will you help me? So he was very quick to take my hand of forgiveness, and fast forward 20 years later, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary last October. We're still together. I would never have met him had his grandson not killed my son. He is African American, my roots are Eastern. He is Christian, I am Muslim. His grandson killed my son, and we are brothers. And we'll continue this work till we are not able to do it. And it is really very, very, what's given me a lot of hope is that we now have created what we call a safe school model. And it has several programs in it, but the first program is a live assembly with me and the grandfather. And we are introduced by a facilitator. This man's grandson killed this man's son, and here they are together in the spirit of compassion and forgiveness. And this pin drop silence. We're very middle school focused. The kid who killed my son joined a gang in the 6th grade, and he took my son's life in the 8th grade. And then we have in-classroom curriculum, we have after-school groups. We also have mentoring for the kids that are the challenging kids, as I call them. We've learned about 8 to 12% of the middle schools in the inner cities are the challenging kids, and we hook them up with mentors that work for the foundation. In 2 years, we are able to turn the entire school around, get rid of the gangs, and we are able to cut suspensions and expulsions by 70%, which is huge, because if you suspend a kid or expel a kid, guess what happens? He joins a gang and then ends up in prison. So what's given me a lot of hope is that not only these principles of nonviolence are teachable, our kids are hungry for them. I personally have now given over 1,000 school presentations in the last 20 years have over 100,000 letters from kids. And I truly believe that investment that we need to make in our children is critical.
That's what was one of the questions I was going to ask you. In these presentations, how early to an age group do you start? And I mean, how are these children reacting? I know some children that are a little bit older and are jaded and they're going, yeah, right. But are they touched by what
Yes,
you
I
are
think,
saying?
I've given presentations all the way from third, fourth grade to university students. I also speak to a group of students that come out every summer. 25 of them are Palestinians, 25 of them are Israelis, and 25 Americans that are high school kids. And what I found is that I am able to touch all ages. Obviously, the earlier you start, it is better. So I definitely think that these principles of nonviolence can also be started even in preschool and even in kindergarten. I'm not doing a lot of work there, but a friend of mine in Seattle has taken the principles that we teach in the foundation. We start around fourth grade. She's now taken that and created a curriculum which is being piloted in Seattle in kindergarten and preschool. But the message is true. I mean, these principles I teach, my six key principles I teach, are very applicable to all ages.
What I was wondering is that our children are very smart. I mean, I look at the level of intelligence and emotional maturity of the children, in the society, and you presenting the information to them and opening up their hearts and understanding to realize that they have choices and responsibility in life. Do you think they bring this back to their parents? It's like a further teaching.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll tell you a little story about that. I came from the business world when my son was alive, so we measure all of our programs. And we had 3 violence prevention experts follow us around for almost 10 months. And we had a questionnaire before and a questionnaire after our programs. And at that time, we were primarily doing the assembly. And then we had focus group with the kids, with the teachers. And what we found, it was amazing that before our assembly we asked the question, because there are guns lying on coffee tables, loaded guns all over people's homes. And we asked the question before our assembly is, how many of you want to be away from people that have guns? And about 8%. After our assembly, it was almost like 90% want to avoid people that have guns around them. We asked questions like, how many of you think it's dangerous to join a gang? About 8% thought it was dangerous to join a gang. After our program, 82 or 85% joined the gang. But then we went back 90 days later and asked the same questions, and actually the results were even better. So I was very suspect of all of these violence impacts expert, and I said, how can our results be better 90 days later than immediately after the assembly? And they said the reason for that is because they don't forget your presentations. They talk among themselves during these 90 days. And they also talk to their parents, which I was very glad to hear because, teenager kids and parents don't talk a lot. But our program was so powerful that they went home and said to their parents, we had 2 men that came to our school today. And one man's grandson killed the other man's son, and they presented this powerful assembly. So yeah, I think and I've now been doing this for 20 years. I mean, I routinely get, I just spoke actually at San Diego State University about 2 weeks ago, and this kid came up to me and said, Mr. Khamisa, I want to thank you because when I was in 6th grade, you came and spoke at my school, and I've just graduated in business and I want to go into banking like you are. And if you hadn't come up to my school, I wouldn't have graduated. I'm the first person in my family to ever graduate. And I probably would have joined a gang because my older brother was in a gang. So they don't forget it. It's such a powerful assembly that they really get that that they want to have a different trajectory than the one that Tony had.
Yeah, I think what you're providing is, like I said, the children are so smart.
Yes.
You're providing them with choices and options that it doesn't have to be this way. You know, what you see around you, you can make a personal choice. You're treating them like adults in a way.
Right, right.
So, you know, I'm looking at this one. Oh, already pretty soon we'll be hitting another break. But I want you to, on our next break, discuss some of the programs in the foundation, especially restorative, um, restorative judgment. Is that the
It's restorative practices.
I'll practice? Okay. You know, I'm
or
going
restorative justice. Restorative justice is probably
justice.
better known. Yeah.
Yeah, because things like this. These are programs that I think a lot of parents would like to know about. I mean, even myself, I'm at the grandparent stage right now.
Right, me
But,
too.
but I would have years ago. I mean, I'm very blessed to have two girls that turned out okay. But I think as a parent, I would like to have known that, you know, something like this existed, because the children either take the growing up, you know, in society, either they're victims or they feel entitled. There doesn't seem to be much sense of responsibility for them. So can we get into this on the next break?
Sure. We talk about restorative justice, absolutely.
The future of internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network, connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
is really offers so many choices, and I'm really grateful that you're bringing this out, because I don't think many people are aware. I know I wasn't, and then studying this, not studying it, but becoming aware of it. It's very exciting seeing what's happening. And what I like is you give the children a sense of um, making decisions for themselves.
Correct. Yeah. So we talked about restorative justice, and the idea there is that in any conflict there is opportunity to create love and unity. And I also do this work in the corporate environment, because wherever there is people, there is conflict.
Mm.
So the question is, how do you do that? And the process is what comes out of restorative justice. Now, to understand RJ, the criminal justice system we have today, we inherited from our pilgrims. So most of the pilgrims were Europeans. So they came from Sweden, Ireland, England, Scotland, which are all monarchies. So in a monarchy, the king and the queen owns both the land and the people. So when there's a crime committed, it is always against the monarch. In the United States, we don't have monarchy, so the state takes that role. So in the case of my son's tragedy, it was the state of California against Tony Hicks. Now, RJ takes a different approach, that, in a crime, there are three parties. There is the victim, there's the perpetrator, and there is community. And justice is not done till you address all of these three parties. A state can't be a party. They can be a facilitator, but they cannot be a party. And the goal of RJ is to make the victim whole. Obviously, you can't do that with me, because my son is dead and you can't bring him back. But working with a grandfather, and also working with the kid to kill my son, is 35 years old. I'll come to that in a minute. Brings meaning to me and my family, because as a result of this work, less kids are dying or ending up in prison, which is meaningful to me and my family, because Tariq did not die in vain. The second part of the equation is you have to bring the offender back into society as a functioning, contributing member. Tony, as I mentioned earlier, is 35 years old. I've written 4 books. My first one you mentioned was From Murder to Forgiveness, followed by Forgiveness to Fulfillment. And then I wrote a third book, which was published by Random House. And then the trilogy is From Fulfillment to Peace, which I wrote about 10 months ago. And Tony wrote the foreword to it. He's 12 units away from his degree in child psychology. We finally have a date in 2018 when he will be released. And he will join his grandfather and me. And I know that Tony is no longer the gangbanger he was, that he would like to turn the clock back. Obviously, you can't do that. But in my hearts of hearts, as a result of my hand of forgiveness, he's totally changed. We've saved him, but think about the power of him on stage with his grandfather and me. When he tells the kids that when he was 11, he joined a gang. When he was 14, he killed my son, and he spent the last umpteen years in prison, and it's not worth it. Kids will listen to that voice, because his voice will have the intonation of that person who pulled the trigger. So we've saved him, but he will save many kids. And the third part of the equation in RJ is you have to heal the community. So for us doing programs in schools, we are now finding that once we turn a school around, the entire community around the schools turns around. So there's less crime and less violence and less gangs and less drugs. So it's a much better system for justice than the criminal justice system we have, because really it's broke and very rarely, produces justice. But RJ comes from the Aboriginal cultures of New Zealand and Australia, and it is far more humane. So now, I've been doing this work for 20 years, but finally now, RJ is being picked up into our schools. And there's a lot more. If your viewers are interested in it, they can just Google restorative practices or restorative justice, and there is a lot more information on the internet.
Yeah, I know. In the last segment, we'll have you go through all the places, either how they can contact you or how they can find out about these programs. But can you give an example in the schools how RJ works?
Well, I can give you an example. Like, for instance, we have classes where we teach classes on empathy, on forgiveness, on choice making. And all of our classes have a theme. So, for instance, the class on empathy, it's a big word for a seventh grader, but the theme is, you don't know me till you walk a mile in my shoes, and I don't know you till I walk a mile in your shoes, because you can't have empathy for somebody you don't know. I know everything there is to know about Tony, and had I lived the same life he did, I would have made the same choice. That's empathy. So we teach the class, and the homework is, go walk a mile in somebody's shoes you don't know. And this is a true story about a Hispanic kid. His name is Alejandro, and he goes by Alex. And he was one of the most disruptive kids in the class, had all the signs that he wanted to be a wannabe gang member. And somehow this lesson kind of caught him. So when the next week the lesson is on compassion, the teacher asked, who wants to share their homework on empathy? And of course, his hand shot up. And he was very animated, and he wanted to speak. And the teacher was a little nervous because this was the most disruptive kid in her class. But she could not ignore him. So she says, yes, Alex, what is it that you want to share? He said, well, I actually didn't disrupt the class. He actually made the class. He said, I was walking in the hood last weekend, and this kid gave me a dirty, angry look. And the kid giving him a dirty, angry look is African American, and we have a lot of racial gangs. And he says the rules of the hood are, if somebody gives you a dirty, angry look, well, you go beat him up. But since you had taught me you don't know me till you walk a mile in my shoes, and I don't know you till I walk a mile in your shoes, I walked up to this kid and says, why are you giving me a dirty, angry look? So what the kid told me, I'm not giving you a dirty, angry look. I'm angry because my brother was shot and killed last night. So what did you do, Alexis? I reached out to him. I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, I really know how you feel, because my uncle was shot and killed 6 months ago.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
That's empathy. So tell me you can't teach this stuff. Alex walks the hood every weekend. What does he do now when he sees somebody giving him an angry, dirty look? He reaches out.
I think it's an amazing story because it's really supposed. I know in the New Age community, which I'm part of, we promote heart to heart understanding, oneness, but a lot of us don't do it in our daily life, unfortunately.
Right.
Unless it becomes really personal. But stories like this, you're saying this is possible. This is a working plan, a solution. Are the educators that are teaching these children, do they have to go through a special class?
Well, what we have done is we've created the curriculum, and we have created a curriculum that is very friendly in terms of being able to teach it. Now, the challenge is schools are not being compensated for teaching the principles of nonviolence, which surprises me because, every child is not going to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or an astronaut, but they're all going to be parents. And the skills that we are teaching are very, very important. So we've essentially taken the mandate, but we've also got now a program called Ending the Cycle of Violence, which is has 6 DVDs and 33 experiential exercises, and you can find that on my website, azimkhamisa.com. It's very reasonable. I think it's under $100. And any teacher can then show a DVD, and for each of our 6 principles, we have 5 or 6 exercises. And it's being used all over the world. I speak worldwide this year. I'm typically on the road about 180 days. And this year, I've already traveled a lot in the U.S. and Canada, and I'm going to be speaking in Australia, Finland, and India. So, it's a busy life, and many of the people are using this program. We also have developed another program, which is a 10-week program called Restorative Practices, and we are just coming out with it. We should have it pretty much packaged by the end of this year, which will come, and then we're going to attach what I call a train the trainer. And what happens here is that if schools that are interested can then look at this curriculum, and I think it's best taught by counselors, and that we will train the counselors to actually deliver this particular curriculum in the classroom.
What I'm wondering is a lot of people, they homeschool their children purely because of the reasons, they were talking about to, protect them from violence or to protect them from bullying, which is another major subject nowadays.
Yes.
Could parents benefit?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you go to, and there's lots of stuff on my website, but in particular, if you are homeschooling a student or a child, then the Ending the Cycle of Violence is a wonderful program. I mean, it's time tested. There are 6 very good principles. The DVDs are very well done. In fact, Discovery Education spent $500,000 on it. We interviewed Tony when he was 26 years old in prison. And, we have footage of him as a gangbanger when he was 14. And at 26, he comes across as a monk. So it's, each DVD is about half an hour. And then there are 4 to 5 experiential exercises, and there are 33 of them that teach kids the principles of nonviolence, empathy, compassion, forgiveness, and peacemaking.
Oh, wow. So we'll be back in a few minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness and action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community, bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
I think we're in the last segment already, and I was wondering before we get to the contact information. You say that, you travel all over the world, and you've come across many different cultures, many different spiritual ideas, but do you find all parents to be the same, that they basically want the best for their children?
Yes, I think so. I think all cultures want the same thing. They may go about it a different way. And I think there is a lot of richness and diversity. I myself grew up in Africa, although my roots are Indian and Persian. I went to school in England, and then I, moved to the United States about 40 years ago. So, I've lived both in Africa. I have a big background in the East, and was educated and now live in the West. And what I have discovered that this has been a wonderful gift for me, because there's a lot of soul in Africa. There's a lot of spiritual wisdom in the East, and there's a lot of material wisdom in the West. And someday I want to write a book about what it means to draw on these cultures, about how to live, with the principles of having a very defined and rich soul and practicing spiritual wisdom from the East and the material wisdom of the West. And I think that has helped me deal with a lot of the challenge in life, that none of us have the complete solution, but together we really do. So I'm a big proponent of global citizenships. In fact, my last newsletter talked a little bit about that. I write a monthly newsletter, and your audiences can, go to azimkhamisa.com and sign up for it, is that we essentially have to work towards a world that works for everyone. And one thing I think that is very, very common with all of us, all parents, all cultures, is we all want peace. But peace is a proactive effort. And the way I teach peace is by following the 6 principles. And you can learn more about these principles on my websites. And also the foundation website is tkf.org. They're both very robust websites.
If you had to share one message with my listeners, listening, because like I said, this information is not, I wasn't familiar with it at all, and I didn't realize, what programs were out there, because I think so many people are desensitized to violence and saying, either it's not my problem or what can I do about it. So hearing your voice and hearing your journey of, well, I'm taking this one subject, and let's find, it's unacceptable, this violence. I was very impressed by that word when you said that. This is unacceptable. Let's do something.
Absolutely. And I think that it starts there, that sometimes you don't know how painful violence is till it crosses your path. At least I didn't. But now I teach that violence hurts very deep. Violence scars the soul, and sometimes it scars it forever. All of us, we don't have to be physically violent. We also have a lot of violent thoughts. There's way too much judgment. And I think the biggest impediment to forgiveness is judgment. We judge people by their race, by their socioeconomic status, by their religion, by the way they dress. And you think, so the point I'm trying to make here is, now that I really get how painful violence is, that I not only really get, I really, really, really get it. And because I really get how painful violence is, I would never be violent to another human being. And I think it's important not only I get it, it's important we all get it, young and old, because you can't destroy violence with more violence. You can't destroy dark with dark. You can go into a dark room, turn a light on, it's no longer dark. You cannot destroy hate with hate. Only love can do that. So I think that you start there, that as a practitioner, as a non-violent leader, you can never resort to violence, irrespective of the circumstances, because it always makes things worse, not better. Every war has created another war. You think after 2,000 years, we would learn a new strategy. So I think that violence is predominantly, all cultures suffer it. But I think we don't have enough Gandhis, enough MLK Juniors, and enough Mother Teresas. And we need more leaders that are practitioners of these principles of nonviolence.
And I think hearing a person like yours, your personal journey, I don't think originally you ever thought, foresaw where this would bring you, 20 years later or so. But
Yes.
People hearing voices and saying, I can relate to that. I can relate to, this pain and what has happened. And somebody is offering, there's a solution. There's things that we can do. Now, would you, again, repeat your website and other sites that people can check out and discover?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the foundation website is TKF, T as in Tom, K as in King, F as in Frank.org. My personal website is azimkhamisa.com, which is AZI, M as in Mary, KHA, M as in Mary, I, S as in sugar, A. So it's azimkhamisa.com. And there are plenty of resources on both of these websites in terms of teaching the principles of nonviolence, in terms of teaching the principles of empathy, of compassion, of forgiveness, and of peacemaking.
And it's a very, I think all the information and the way you explain it is part of daily life. We often quickly say, you have to walk in my shoes to understand me. But people don't put it in practice. Like you said, they form judgments, and we have to repattern all this, our thinking, and keep on going back and teaching other people. And I think you've made a definite shift in consciousness. And I really going to look forward to, when your next book comes out, because this whole journey is amazing. Because when I started off saying I don't know how I would react,
Right.
I think that's probably 90% of us. We wouldn't know how to react.
Right. No, I mean, I look back 21 years ago when he was killed, and I made the choice to forgive instead of go the other way. And it was the right choice for me, because at that time I did not know all that would manifest as a result of their choice. And as I talked earlier, my first book is From Murder to Forgiveness. First chapter is murder, last is forgiveness. Second is From Forgiveness to Fulfillment, because the work that I have done in the aftermath of my son's tragedy has been very fulfilling. And I just finished the book Fulfillment to Peace. So it's a 21-year journey that started with murder and ended in peace. I am at a level of peace today that I never have been. Not that I would not want my son back. Sure, I would like him back in a New York second, but obviously that is not possible. But at that time, I did not know that this journey that took 21 years would reward me with the amount of peace that I enjoy in my daily life. And I think that we all want peace. And for me, the journey started with practicing forgiveness. I always tell people that, every morning after I meditate, I do 2 hours a day. There's 2 free downloads on meditation on my website. One is on forgiveness, and the other one is on manifesting your goal. I read and pray. I read something inspiring. Pray. I forgive Tony every day. I've been doing that for 21 years. So my forgiveness muscle is very strong. And I think we can all build our forgiveness muscle, because the reward at the end of the day is peace.
And I think people need to realize they have choices to make. They're responsible for their choices. And they can change their outlooks on life. They don't have to stay in one particular mode. You have the choice constantly. And I think that's something people really don't get. They get so locked into old patterns. They just think that this is the way it is. And you offer so much love and understanding just purely through your own journey through tragedy. And I'm so glad there's people like you in the world sharing.
Yes. Well, I mean, you're right. We make many choices every single day. And I always talk about Tony, it took him less than a second to make a choice to pull the trigger, but it changed the entire trajectory for the rest of his life. And I think it's very important that we teach young people that before they make a choice, that they have to recognize that one choice that sometimes can take less than a second could impact the entire trajectory of the rest of their lives. So, we are all going to get hard hits. I did talk about my third book, which is called The Secrets of the Bulletproof Spirit, How to Bounce Back from Life's Hardest Hits. It was co-authored with a lady that lives in New York, Gillian Quinn. And it's a great book for those people that are going through a hard hit. There are 30 chapters in this book. There is quite a bit of wisdom in there about forgiveness and how to deal with a hard hit in a positive, non-violent, holistic, and healing way.
In a very non-judgmental way, too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that book is available very broadly. It's also on my website, but you can get it from anywhere,
Azim, I thank you for being with us today and offering all the sharings you did. I think it opens many eyes.
Well, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Much luck on your future journey.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.